Am I the asshole for backing out of an agreement I never made? 2 months ago my dad, 54M, approached me with an opportunity to buy a female Labrador puppy from his friend, let's call him Joe, who shows and breeds pedigree Labradors. According to my dad, Joe was offering me the Labrador puppy for a heavily discounted rate, $80, because I was his friend's daughter. Nothing else was mentioned to me about why the puppy was so cheap, but I assumed my dad's friend Joe was just being generous. Looking back, I was definitely naive, but I'd been wanting a Labrador pup for a long time and the offer was just too good to pass up. That same day I drove over 2 hours to Joe's farm to collect my new 3-month-old Labrador puppy and sign the paperwork transferring the ownership of the pup to me. Joe never mentioned anything else about the terms of the sale and I never signed any other paperwork or contract regarding further terms. I want to stress that in the period directly after the sale, neither Joe or my dad discussed with me the apparent, extra terms I had supposedly agreed to. Until recently. I mentioned to my dad that I had booked Jennifer, name of pup, for her desexing next month and my dad immediately told me I had to cancel. He went on to explain that he had agreed, on my behalf, to allow Joe to use my Labrador to breed more pups for him to sell. This is apparently why I was able to buy Jennifer for such a discounted rate. I was shocked but frankly not surprised since my dad has a long history of neglecting to mention important details, lying by omission. As far as I'm concerned, I never agreed to these terms so I'm not bound to them. Dad and Joe may have had a verbal agreement but I am the legal owner of Jennifer and there was no verbal or written agreement between me and Joe so I don't care. I called Joe and made it crystal clear to him that I absolutely was not planning to breed Jennifer, let alone give him the puppies to sell. He was upset, called me a few choice names, and demanded I pay back the difference between the discounted rate and the normal rate for Jennifer since I wasn't breeding her for him. I refused because I legally own Jennifer now and the sale is over. If he wanted me to breed Jennifer he should have talked to me about this personally because I was the buyer, not my dad. Joe is apparently fuming. My dad is angry because he doesn't understand why it's a big deal, and other extended family members who know Joe think I'm being a bitch and should at least pay him back the difference. But I honestly just don't feel like I'm obligated to. It's their fault, especially Joe, for not mentioning these extra terms to me before the sale. He's the seller and he show no better when conducting his business. Also, according to the agreement, I would have to breed Jennifer whenever Joe wanted, so I'm guessing non-stop. Plus Joe would not have to pay for Jennifer's medical expenses when pregnant and that would all come out of my pocket. Hard pass. Not the asshole. Make sure you have your dog chipped and some sort of tracking device on the collar. I wouldn't trust Joe or your father not to try to take the dog back. Maybe also look into getting some cameras put up at your place. Not the asshole. Have your dad pay the difference, as he was the one who deliberately lied by omission. Not the asshole. The dog is your dog, and you do not owe anyone anything. You are absolutely correct that if the terms of the sale included making the dog available for breeding, that the transfer of ownership paperwork needed to include that information. It didn't, and nothing else was signed. There isn't shit anyone can do, legally. Do be careful though, because I wouldn't put it past a scorned BYB, and frankly, that's what he sounds like with this attempt to force you to breed dogs for him, to steal your dog. Make sure that she's never outside alone, be careful at dog parks, be sure she's chipped, and be clear with any groomers, daycare or boarding centers that you and only you are to pick up your dog. Not the asshole. He sounds like a backyard breeder who doesn't actually care about the health of the breed. Real breeders would charge extra for a puppy with breeding rights and a legal document would be drawn up. You should only breed a female dog 3 times or else it'll start to heavily impact her health. He doesn't care about the health of these dogs. Go through with the desexing and don't pay that guy anything. Not the asshole. That's on Joe's dumbass for not mentioning such a huge detail to you. Not the asshole. This sounds like the craziest nonsense I've ever heard. I've heard of breeders having new owners specifically sign contracts saying they won't breed the dogs. I've never heard of someone trying to force the new owner to be part of their puppy mill. Not the asshole. And is there any organization you can report Joe to? Where I live, selling puppies like this would be illegal. Also, you do owe us Jennifer tax winking face. I hope she'll have a good, long, healthy life with you. Not the asshole. In addition to this not being your legal obligation, and the medicinal fees for your dog, I assume that this would also include taking care of her puppies. From my understanding, puppies aren't to leave their mom's side for 3 months after birth. So essentially you'd have two options: giving your dog back to him for months every time she gives birth, or taking care of puppies for 3 months each time. Or traumatizing the puppies by separating them before they're ready. Did your dad and Joe talk about that part? I'm with you, hard pass. Not the asshole. What kind of idiot breeder doesn't state such a significant point up front? And breeding a female dog and keeping a female dog not neutered is not insignificant in terms of what it means in terms of you're taking care of the dog. It is ironic, since many of the higher quality breeders actually require that dogs they sell be neutered unless they are of a quality intended for show. But this is a condition of the sale along and stated up front. Joe and your dad obviously. But seriously. This guy is an obviously puppy mill, and by buying his puppies, even at a discount, you're supporting the industry. Edit. OMG, thanks for the award. I was surprised to see so many not the assholes, considering OP is just as big a contributor as the mill breeder. Not the asshole. Get your dear dog spayed ASAP, OP. Don't tell anyone beforehand. Just do it. I assume that there was nothing about this bizarre plan in the papers you signed. If Joe persists, get an attorney to send him a cease and desist order. Don't try to deal with crazy people yourself. Info. Op, by any chance are you a woman? Not the asshole, by the way. Just curious whether sexism played a role. Other people's assumptions about this deal you never made. Your dad and Joe for obvious reasons, and you for buying a dog from a puppy mill. Please don't support these kinds of businesses. Not the asshole. Anything Joe wanted, he should have put into a written agreement with you, the buyer. Or, at least talk to you about it first. Not the asshole. You are not bound by an agreement made informally about something you legally own. Your dad's just upset you've made him look stupid. But you haven't. He's made himself look stupid. Not the asshole. You can't back out of terms you never agreed to. This would be like buying a car from a family friend who made some unknown to you, the actual owner, agreement with your dad to use the car as an Uber service. They get to use it whenever they want, and you pay for any damages and costs associated with it. Next time you get crap from the kind-hearted souls who feel bad for Joe, ask if they want to donate money to pay Joe back the difference. They agreed to his terms, as much as you did. Info. You signed papers when you picked up the pup. What did the papers say exactly? ETA. I'm honestly curious. So many people don't read contracts they sign. I get that OP was not fully informed of the breeder's expectation for the sale, but I want to know what was written down. That's what will have weight if the breeder decides to sue. Not the asshole. Block his number and enjoy your pup. You're doing a great job. This guy sounds very shady. I would make a call to SPCA and let them know what is going on. I suspect your dad's friend is running an illegal puppy farm and has any number of agreements with other owners. Can we talk about how this dog is named Jennifer? Not the asshole. Super shitty of your dad to agree to something on your behalf. Glad to hear your written agreement does not cover what is absolutely fucking well a big deal. Not the asshole. If you were buying a dog on what is generally known as breeder's terms, there should have been a contract, specifying number of litters, health testing, etc. etc. If Joe is planning to breed any dog non-stop, he is a puppy mill and deserves reporting to AKC and anyone else who could help. You're naive to think that getting a pedigree dog for $80 is normal, unsure if that even covers the cost of the registration, and that there wouldn't be any strings attached though. You're lucky Joe is a moron and it worked in your favor this time. Not the asshole, and you don't owe the puppy mill or your dad anything. There is no contract, verbal or written. The deal is done and that guy can suck it. This is the most clear-cut case of OP knowing she's not the asshole that I've ever seen. Not the asshole. Keep your dog far away from Joe. Not the asshole. You didn't make that agreement, so you are not the asshole for refusing. But Joe isn't the asshole either. He thought he made a deal with your familia as friends. He did communicate it with your family. Your dad is the asshole for withholding information from both you and Joe. I also know breeders that do this. You buy their dog at a reduced rate and they rent the dog 3 times in the dog's lifetime for breeding. As long as both parties are aware and agree, it can be mutually beneficial. Please call animal control and report him. Sounds like he runs a puppy mill, and thank God you got your pup out of there so she didn't get used for birthing more puppies until she died. Get her fixed as soon as possible as well, and a microchip so that they don't try to steal her, and don't leave her outside alone loudly crying, not the asshole. NTA. So he is just going to keep inbreeding dogs to make money, and when the puppies that have genetic defects start coming he just kills them because no one will want to pay $500 or $600 for them. Dog breeders are trash. If you want a dog, go adopt them. There are so many dogs that need homes and love. You should never pay for any animal. Info. Were the only papers you signed the transfer of ownership? Or was there a contract with fine print? Not the asshole. If this is important to Joe, he should have discussed it with you. Not the asshole. Get that pup spayed and chipped ASAP. And keep that asshole away from her, and your father too, he's awful. My dad has a long history of neglecting to mention important details, lying by omission. Not the asshole, but seriously, you probably need to not accept any more deals from your father without thoroughly questioning the why of the deal. It's shocking that Joe didn't mention anything about breeding when you picked her up. At the very least, you would expect something like, "I'll call you in X months when she should be ready for a litter," to give you an inkling of what to expect. Not the asshole. I am a veterinary nurse. While I can't say that we've had this exact issue among clients, I've seen similar. Be sure you tell your vet and have it recorded in the written record that you are the only one who can make decisions, pay for and take home your dog. I definitely recommend tattoo and microchip for ID. They're both effective, and while the microchip can dislodge and move throughout the body, it generally doesn't ever come out. He went on to explain that he had agreed, on my behalf, to allow Joe to use my Labrador to breed more pups for him to sell. This was not in the terms that you agreed to, therefore you can disregard it. Not the asshole. Not surprised, since my dad has a long history of neglecting to mention important details, lying by omission. Moving forward, don't ever make deals where your dad has been involved. Info. Why would you think you were the asshole here? No, breeding animals like that is disgusting. You need to double check everything you signed. The only binding terms are in whatever paperwork you signed. If breeding your dog wasn't part of the original agreement, they can't hold you to it. Not the asshole. It's on them for making an agreement without the buyer, you. If the buyer was a total stranger and Joe and your dad made that agreement, no one would blame the buyer for not accepting the agreement or paying the difference. Just because it's someone you own doesn't mean you own them anything. NTA. This guy doesn't sound legit at all for a dog breeder. What's the name of his kennel? Is he registered with the AKC? What titles do his dogs have? There is no way a legit breeder would ask a stranger to take care of their pregnant dog. This doesn't add up. Not the asshole. Have Jennifer spayed and let her live her best pup life with you for the rest of her days. Joe and your father can go pound sand. Not the asshole. Puppy tax, please. Not the asshole. And Joe is running a puppy mill. Protect Jennifer. Info. You said you signed paperwork transferring ownership. Are you 100% sure that wasn't any form of contract mentioning any of this? I'd like to assume you read it and it didn't say anything about this and didn't really act as a contract that could hurt you here, and NTA in that case. But otherwise, this could be ESH, as we know from Judge Judy. Verbal agreements mean nothing, so as long as nothing is in writing that can bite you, you're good. As others have said, absolutely don't let her out of your sight until she's fixed. And even after. Who knows what this guy is like? Not the asshole, and fuck Joe for breeding dogs. Not the asshole. Joe is most likely a backyard breeder, puppy mill. Keep your poor dog away from him. He should not have dogs and should not be breeding. So they want a puppy mill from one pup that you're responsible for? Hard pass. Thank you for saying no. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. You should have 100% been told of the agreement beforehand, so you could turn it down. Also, it's weird, the owner of the bitch usually keeps the puppies. So his deal was you get a dog for cheap and I make thousands off of her? What kind of horrible deal is that anyway? Tell Joe to F off.